Okay, welcome back to No Better Argument. So today we'll be looking at NBA standings heading into the final week of the regular season. Most teams have about 4 games left to play out, so still plenty to be determined, a lot of uncertainty. We'll do some projections as well where I think teams will end up as we enter into the play-in game and the playoffs. So let's get started. The Eastern Conference. So there's two interesting things. Firstly, the play-in, obvious, everyone wants to talk about it. It's going to be exciting. And then secondly, the 4 through 6 battle. So kicking things off with the play-in. With Boston losing this morning to Miami, you can probably pigeonhole them into that 7th seed. You then have Charlotte in the 8th seed, which I think they'll be able to hold on to. The Wizards, the surging Wizards, who are now 9th, and then the Pacers 10th. So I would probably say the Wizards would have been able to jump Charlotte if Beal was healthy, but obviously he strained his hamstring the other day against the Pacers, so that's unfortunate. It's good though that the injury is not as severe as first thought. So Beal is likely to miss the next few games, potentially sit out the rest of the regular season, but he'll be good to go for that massive play-in game. Then you have the 4 through 6 battle. So fourth New York, fifth Atlanta, sixth Miami. Miami and Atlanta have a tied record, so they're both 1 game behind New York. Looking at the schedules, the remaining schedules for these three teams, New York play Lakers, Spurs, Charlotte, and Boston. So I could probably see them getting 3 out of 4 in that situation. You then have Atlanta that play the Wizards twice and then finish off with Orlando and Houston. So I could see them winning at least 2, potentially 3, if they can steal one of those Washington games. And then Miami, you have Boston, Philly, Milwaukee, and Detroit. So obviously one of those in Detroit is the only guaranteed win. Boston will still be pushing hard. They have no reason to rest guys. If Philly have the 1 seed locked up, you can expect them to rest guys, but I don't think they will have it locked up by that stage. So Philly will most likely be playing everyone. Milwaukee, they're the same situation. If they can have the 2 seed locked up, which I don't think they will, then you can expect them to rest guys. But those first 3 teams, Boston, Philly, Milwaukee, too much is up in the air for them to be resting guys at this stage. So the only guaranteed win there for Miami is Detroit. So they have to somehow get ahead of Atlanta because Atlanta own the tiebreaker, winning the head-to-head record this season between the two. So I think the prediction is the order stays the same. New York end up with the 4th seed and get first round home court, which is huge for them against Atlanta, and then Miami unfortunately gets stuck on the wrong side of the bracket. So in the first round, they have to face either Milwaukee or Brooklyn, and if they somehow manage to get through that, they then have to face whichever of the 2 out of Milwaukee and Brooklyn they didn't face in the first round. So it's going to be a real struggle for Miami to progress this season. I struggle to see how they get out of the first round if they end up on the wrong side of the bracket. So that's where we sit with the Eastern Conference. Now the Western Conference. So this is the exciting part of it. So the play-in we'll speak about on top of a couple of battles. So the 1-2 battle and then the 5-6 battle as well. So with the play-in, similar to the East, the Lakers find themselves locked into the 7th seed. They lost to Portland the other day, which was pretty crucial for them if they wanted to avoid that play-in game. So because they lost that, similar to Boston, losing the game to Miami, they'll be pigeonholed into that 7th seed. So you then have, as it currently sits, Golden State at 8th, Memphis at 9th, and San Antonio 10th. My prediction is Memphis jump Golden State and take 8th. So Memphis are half a game behind Golden State. They have 5 games left on the schedule when everyone else has 4, and that obviously Golden State is one of those teams that has 4. And included in the 5 games, Memphis gets to play a Dallas team without Luka in a couple of days' time because Luka, I'll speak about him in a sec, got suspended. Then they get to face Sacramento twice as well in the last 5 games. So you can close to guarantee them 3 wins. Golden State have a bit of a harder schedule. So I think that means we won't get the Lakers Golden State playing game, which everyone was dying for. It'll mean Lakers v Memphis and Golden State v San Antonio. So then the 1-2 battle, obviously between Utah and Phoenix. Prediction is Utah gets it. So they play OKC and Sacramento in 2 out of their last 4. That's the clincher for me. I think Phoenix are a game and a half behind. They're playing at the moment against the Lakers. Then they play Golden State, Portland, and finish off with the Spurs twice. So I think Utah have just too much of a buffer. They have a little bit of an easier schedule with those Thunder and Kings games. and that'll probably guarantee them that 1 seed, which will round out what has been a pretty awesome season for them. So then you have the 5-6 battle, and things get really interesting after what happened today. So you have Dallas currently in the 5th seed, and Portland a half a game behind in the 6th seed. Now with Dallas, Luka against the Cavs today picked up his 16th technical, so that's an automatic suspension for the next game. So Dallas play Memphis, and that'll be without Luka. They then play the Pelicans. They then play Toronto and Minnesota. So none of those are guaranteed wins. If you remember, Luka hit that amazing, almost floater from the 3-game winner against Memphis to break their heart. So the Grizzlies will be seeking revenge. You then have the Pelicans that without Adams, Zion, and Ingram are still alive for the play-in. They got a massive win against Charlotte today, so they certainly will give their all. You then have Toronto that have decided to not throw in the towel either, and so that's obviously always going to be a tough game. And then Minnesota, who haven't rested guys, even though they probably should be. They should look ahead to, where they think they'll finish in the draft. It's important because if their pick lands outside the top 3, it goes to Golden State. So it's interesting that they're still playing Towns, Russell, Rubio, even Edwards. They haven't, scratched any of those guys and sat them out for the rest of the season because there's some really important implications that it'll have for the draft with the talent available being ridiculous. I think this is going to be a real wasted opportunity. But in saying that, it only adds further to Portland. They play Houston, Utah, Phoenix, and Denver. So Houston's almost a guaranteed win. Utah and Phoenix will be tough games, but I think Denver will be resting guys in that last game. It's potential they'll have that 4th seed locked up, potentially the 3rd seed if they can keep pushing, and the Clippers let a couple more slip after dropping one to the Knicks today. So the prediction is Portland gets that 5th seed because they own the tiebreaker over Dallas. So it'll really come back to bite them. Dallas, that the poor start they had to the season, and then on top of that, the Porzingis in and out, a lot of fluctuation. They had to make a trade to bring in Redick and Melly because they weren't happy with how the team was going. So really makes things interesting. Credit to Portland. They looked like they were down and out, and it's likely that they'll end up with the 5th seed now. So I wanted to finish out with a tank update. So Houston will finish off with the worst record in the NBA. They'll have the best odds at getting a high pick in the draft. And that's important because OKC has the right to swap picks with them. It's top 4 protected. So if the pick's 5 or worse, OKC can just swap. And if it's 1 through 4, Houston get to keep it. So it's very important that Houston get it 1 through 4 and can hold on and save face because the actual players they got back for Harden was a disgrace. So they really need a good draft pick to build around, alongside as well Kevin Porter Jr. And even though he's been injured a lot, Christian Wood, who has shown flashes that he can be a really important piece to the starting group. You then have Detroit, that are number 2. I can't see them winning another game. They're on 20 wins, so they'll probably have the 2nd best odds at the lottery. Then this is where it gets interesting. So OKC, Cleveland, and Orlando are all on 21 wins. And so I can't see how either of those 3 teams gets a win to finish out the season. And the tiebreaker is different to how it works for playoff seeding. So in playoff seeding, the tiebreaker is basically who had the better head-to-head record. But when it comes to the draft lottery and deciding which team wins the tiebreaker, according to the NBA website, it's done through a random drawing. So take from that what you will. I have no idea what that means, if it's similar to how they actually decide the draft lottery and they have, a certain amount of ping pong balls and all of that sort of stuff. I have no idea how they decide this tiebreaker. If they flip a coin, anything. Random drawing is a very general term. It could mean a lot of things. So we'll have to see how that pans out for those 2 teams because that tiebreaker will be crucial for who gets 3, 4, and 5 from that crop. Then you have Minnesota, which I think will finish with the 6th best odds for the lottery. They sit on 21 wins at the moment. They got an easy victory against Orlando today, but they play Detroit in a couple of days' time. So if they still play Towns and Russell and Rubio and Edwards for that game, it's basically going to guarantee a win and they'll get 22. And so that'll push them behind that crop that I just spoke about in OKC, Orlando, and Cleveland. It's just not a good position to be in when you have a top 3 protected pick. You need to guarantee or get as close to guaranteeing that you keep that as possible. And I don't think they will. I reckon this pick's going to go to Golden State and the Warriors will be rubbing their hands together at the thought of a top 5 pick which, gosh, in this draft is ridiculous. On top of Clay returning next year, Wiseman coming into his second year, Draymond could be motivated. Steph obviously coming off the year that he's just had. So far out, things are looking good for Golden State, but it won't be looking good for Minnesota. I think it's going to be a really wasted opportunity. And when they look back on things in 2, 3, 4 years' time, I think they'll really regret what they decided to do to finish out these last 30 games by playing all these guys. It's going to come back to really bite them. So there you have it. We looked at the East, we looked at the West, we looked at play-ins from both conferences, we looked at seeding battles, and then we finished off with a tank update. So it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see how this last week pans out. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Expect some podcasts with Darcy coming over the next week, whether it be looking ahead to play-in games or previewing the playoffs. So head over to the DC pod for that. But otherwise, I'll again fill in the gaps with videos like this in the meantime. So again, if you can like, if you can subscribe, if you can share, that'd be much appreciated. And I'll speak to you guys very soon.